Now, this evening, we may not do practical, maybe a little bit of practical anyway. So I'm going to be introducing us to SQL. SQL. It's an abbreviation. Structured Query Language. Structured Query Language is the language that relational database understand. Is the language of the database. SQL is a language of the database. So what is SQL? What is SQL? It is a standard language for storing, manipulating, and retrieving data in databases. Not in all, there are some SQL databases too, that there are some other databases. They too understand SQL, but it's not only SQL that they understand. We have two types of databases, relational database and no SQL. That is not only SQL, but the one that we'll be talking about in this class is relational database. That's SQL databases. So SQL is a language, is a standard language for storing, manipulating, retrieving data in databases. Using a Postgres, when we create a database, populate the table and all of that, we'll be using the SQL statement or SQL query to talk to our database, to relate with our database. So SQL is the standard language for storing, manipulating, and retrieving data in databases. So I'll show us how to use SQL to query a Postgres database. So I'll show us how to create that, how to create database, how to create table, how to work with it, how to retrieve data, how to manipulate data, how to store data inside our database. So SQL, it's a structured query language. It was developed by IBM, and they used to call it SQL. SQL. They used to call it SQL, Structured English Query Language. So as time passes by, they are now like, SQL doesn't really sound well. Let's just make it Structured Query Language. So SQL lets you access, it gives you access and it gives you access to databases, and it helps you to manipulate databases. Now, what is a database? What is a database? A database is an organized collection of structured information or data, typically stored electronically in a computer system. A database is an organized collection of structured information or data, typically stored electronically in a computer system. Now, database is where data has been structured into tables. Database is where data has been structured into tables. So you can have an empty database without a table at all, but you cannot have a data inside a database without you first of all creating a table. So data within the most common types of databases in operation today is typically modeled in rows and columns in a series of tables to make processing and data querying efficient. How do I mean? If you look at your Excel is in rows and columns. So likewise database too. The table inside the database, it's in rows and it's in columns. As time passes by the time we start the practical, you see it. We are going to create database, we populate it, then we are going to export it. When you export it, you see how it looks like. Now we have types of database, types of databases. We have centralized database, distributed database, NoSQL database, cloud database, relational database, network database, object-oriented database, hierarchical database. But what we'll be working with is relational database, SQL database. That's what we'll be talking about in this class. Now, relational database management system. We have what we call DBMS. We have DBMS, that's database management system. Our DBMS stands for Relational Database Management System. And it is the basis for SQL and for all modern database systems, such as PostgreSQL, but it's been pronounced as Postgres, so that we won't start to like bite our tongue. Postgres. Once you say Postgres, people understand what you're talking about. But if you want to pronounce it in full, you say PostgreSQL. Then we have MS SQL Server, that is Microsoft SQL Server. Then we have IBM DB2, Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft Access, SQLite, and so on. The data in our DBMS is stored in database objects called tables. Like I said earlier, you can have an empty database. It's like someone that wants to build a house. It is possible for you to build a house without you having any room in it at all. It is very possible. You can build it for the purpose of all. Right? We want to be renting all out. You can build it for the purpose of that. You can build it for the purpose of office space. That okay, when each person comes, or when each person comes, they can partition it into whatever that suits their offices. So it's possible you build a house without you having a room in it, without you having any room in it at all. And that's the way empty database looks like. But it is impossible when you build a house without any room in it. Then you start to how do I put it now? You start to put gadgets in the room, in the house without room. In the house without room. That's where table comes in. When you create a database and you want to populate your database, there is need for you to create a table. It is inside the table that you populate your data. It's like when you build a house, you have the sitting room, you have the bedroom, you have the bathroom, you have the kitchen, you have your study, and so on and so forth. And whatsoever what you have in the sitting room, the gadgets and all the stuff that you have in the sitting room will be definitely different from what you have in the room. Though you may have some of them that are similar. What you have in the kitchen will be different from what you have at the dining. It will be different from what you have in the bathroom. It will be different from what you have in your in your study, and so on and so forth. So the table is a collection of related data entries, and it consists of columns and rows. Table is in rows and column, like we saw it in Excel. It's in rows and column. Now we have SQL syntax. Like we all know, each language has their syntax. Each language has its own syntax. SQL has its own syntax. So if you want to create a database in SQL, if you want to create a database, you write create database, then you give the database a name, like it is written here, create database, then the name of the database. You can say create database Africa, create database Nigeria, create database pressing, create database school, create database students, create database employee info, and so on and so forth. The syntax for creating a database is create space database space the name of the database. Now, in some cases, you may have to terminate it. Termination means the end of the statement. You may have to apply, you may have to put semicolon. When you see semicolon at the end of a statement, that means that's the end of that statement. That's the end of that statement. You can have several queries or several statements in your query editor, but the database understand, the query tool understand the semicolon, that the semicolon is the end of each of those statements. Now, we talked about you creating a database. You can have inside a database, you have at least one table for you to be able to populate, data, for you to be able to load your data inside the database. You must have at least one table. And inside a database, you can have as many tables as possible. I will show us. You can have as many tables as possible. Okay. Now, the next one. Now, if you want to create a table, the syntax for creating a table is this: create table name. Like the same way you create you create your database, create database name. Now, let's say, for instance, we've created a database name employee. Now I want to create table for the employee. We can say create table employee info. Then you have several columns. And when you have your columns, you have the data type. Each column has the kind of data is going to hold or is going to keep. So when we get to data type, I will explain data type. So create table name, create database name. Now we have table name, column name, data types, constraints. We have an example here. It's a profile. The table name is profile, and it has 5 columns: customer ID, company, country, and issue date. If you look at them properly, the customer has name. The customer column is where the name of the customer resides. Then the customer ID is where you have the ID of the customer. Then the column, the company column, is where you have the company of, or probably the company the customer works for. Have them, then the country in which they belong to or they come from. Then the issue ID, their ID. Now, we have some constraints in database. Constraints in database. We have unique, we have primary key, foreign key, check, default, create index, not null. We'll be making use of maybe about 2 or 3 out of all of this. So unique ensures that all values in a column are different. As the name sounds, all values in a column must be different. They must not be the same thing. The moment you apply unique constraints on a particular column, everything you have in that column must be what? Must be different, must be unique. The second one, primary key, a combination of a not null and unique, uniquely identifies each row in a table. Anytime you apply primary key on a table, you apply primary key on the table, and it's usually on a particular column that has integer type, probably ID, mostly ID, because the primary key will not accept a null value, will not accept empty value, and it must be unique. What primary key does is this. It does 2 major things. It does not allow duplicates, it does not allow duplication at all. And it reduces redundancy. It reduces redundancy. Those are the 2 major things that primary key does. Then foreign key. Foreign key prevents actions that would destroy links between tables. Let's assume that you have 2 tables, table A and table B. On table A, you have primary key. And there's a link between table A and table B. That is, there are some columns on, or at least a column in table A that appears on table B. Let's assume that the customer ID on column A is linked to product ID or sales ID, which is table B. So when you have customer ID on product table, which is table B, and the customer ID is the primary key on its own table, when you get to table B, it becomes a foreign key because the table in which it appears also has its own primary key. Don't worry, you get this better when we get to practical. You see all this. Check ensures that the values in a column satisfies a specific condition. It satisfies a specific condition. Then default, set a default value for a column if no value is specified. There's a particular feature in column when we are creating it. It sets the value into a default. Probably you have 4 to be default. Once you do not specify any value for that column, it will just make use of the default value, which is 4. Then the next one, create index. It is used to create and retrieve data from database very quickly. You know, we have index in our books. All these are books. If you are looking for something in a book and you don't know where exactly it is, you go to the back of your book, you check the index. Once you get the index will lead you to the page in which you can find what you are looking for in that book. It works the same way here. It helps to retrieve data from database very quickly. They're not null. It ensures that a column cannot have a null value. Null value in the sense that it cannot be empty. Now, we have data types. We have data types. We have more than this. Maybe when we get to the practical, I will show us. We have character, which is car. We have variable character, tiny text, text, blob, medium text, medium, depending on the environment in which you find yourself. Depending on the environment in which you find yourself. Some make use of, like MySQL, make use of variable character. Postgres make use of character varying. It's the same thing. Access make use of text. Okay, so character specification for character is 0 to 255, which is a string, but it is fixed. Meanwhile, variable character is not fixed. We have integer, we have big int, we have float, we have double, dates, and all of that. So I will show us when we get to practical. Now, table doings, insert and alter. How do you populate your table? How do you populate your table? How do you put data inside your table? Aside from you importing a data set into the database, you can as well insert data into your tables. And this is the syntax. Insert into table name. Insert into table name, then the column 1, column 2, column 3, depending on the number of columns that you have. Then you have values. Values for the column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, and so on and so forth. Now, to alter a table in SQL, alter a table in SQL means probably you've created a table and you remember that you are meant to have like 5 columns. Let's say, for instance, you are creating a table for employee info. Definitely you have employee ID, employee name, employee, the gender, and probably the date in which the date of employment. Let's now assume that you've created 4 columns for employee info. Later, you now remember that you forget to add next of kin. So what you just do is you go back to your query and say alter table name, alter table employee info, add column. You give that column a name, add column, which is next of kin. Then you give it the data type. Then you submit. So when you submit, it's going to reflect on your table. And that's not the only thing we use the alter for. You can use the alter even to delete the column, from a table, to add column to a table, to delete the column from a table, to change the name of a table. So all of that, we are going to see it in the practical class. Now, we have select statement. Select statement. Select statement is what if you look at this young man, the guy is pointing at what he wants. He was a mama, no, don't give me that small meat. Give me the big meat. The guy is selecting, right? Select statement. You use it to retrieve data from the database. Use it to retrieve data from the database. Apparently, everything about database has been summarized into an acronym called CRUD. C-R-U-D. CRUD. C-R-U-D. C-R-U-D, which means create, read, or retrieve, create, retrieve, update, and then delete or drop. So all this has been everything about database. In fact, everything about application. It's in this acronym, CRUD or CRUD, as the case may be. You create it, you read it or you retrieve it, you update it, you delete or you drop it. So as time goes on, we see all this in play. So you can select just one column, you can select 2 columns, you can select 3 columns from the table name. But when you see this star means select all the columns from that table. Select all the columns from that table. Now, importing data set in tables into PostgreSQL or Postgres. You know, like I told us earlier, that we have 2 ways of populating our data. We can insert the data directly into the database, into the table, or we import the data set in tables into Postgres. We see all this in play. Then we have what we call schema. We have what we call schema. Schema it's like a layout plan of our database. Is a layout plan of our database. Okay, it's going to look like this. You have your sitting room in this. You have the number of tables that you're going to have, all the data type that you're going to have, the name of the table, the connection between all of them, the connection in the sense that the relationship between all our tables, you get all of that from the schema. Now, primary key versus foreign key. We have student table, we have grade table, then we have course table. This student table, this is grade table, and this is course table. If you look at it, there's a relationship between the student table and the grade table. And there's a relationship between the grade table and the course table. So under student table, we have ID. We have primary key on student table. So when student table gets to grade table, it becomes a foreign key. It becomes a foreign key because it's a foreigner on this table. The student ID becomes a foreign key. That key on the student table, when it gets to grade table, it becomes a foreign key because it is not the owner of this table. Okay, now there's a relationship between the grade table and courses. Courses has an ID. Courses has an ID. So is the ID on the course table that is linking the grade table, that is linking the grade table and the course table. Now the next one, when you want to filter, it's not only in Excel that we can filter. We can filter in SQL too. Filter in the sense that, what do I mean by a filter or filtering command? What do I mean by that? We can say that, okay, select everything from the table. Select everything from the table. Then you see it. It's going to bring up everything from the table. But at times you may be like, no, I don't want to see everything. It will be too cumbersome for me. Or you have an idea of what you want to see. And you're like, okay, select the first name, select the last name, where the salary equals, maybe where the salary is greater than 30,000 or where the salary is less than 20,000. Let's assume that the HR, they are trying to like upgrade some of the staff. Maybe they want to do what we call what does what do they call that the government do? Increments. They want to do increments. So they are looking at, okay, maybe everybody in level 1 to 2, let's upgrade their salary. Let's give them additional, let's give them increment, maybe about 10% of the original salary. So you want to see the people in that class. So you can now say select maybe the name, select the level, select this, where salary is less than 25,000. So you filter. It's not going to bring everything up for you. It's going to bring everyone that falls into that category. It's going to bring it up for you. So let me launch my Postgres. Then I will show us some things in there. Then we can trying to launch the Postgres. Now, like I told us, when you first installed our Postgres, once you finish installing it and you launch it, the first thing it will ask you is, it's going to ask you for your password. This is required to unlock saved passwords and reconnect to database servers. It's part of security. You want to be sure that you are the owner of this database. So, and once you key in your password, it should allow you in. You can see. Now I have access to my Postgres, and this is the server. You expand this drop down to see your databases. Like I told us, I have version 13. For some of us, it's going to be Postgres 13. For some of us, Postgres 12, depending on the version that is compatible with the system we are using, with the computer we are using. So I have 28 databases that I've worked with. 28 databases that I've worked with. Now, look at all this. If you notice, some of them are gray in color. They are grayish in color. Why this guy is yellow and it does not have that red mark. And likewise, analysis too is yellow. The reason is because I've connected to this and I've connected to this. So how do you know if you are connected to connect, or how do you know whether you've connected to it or not? If you have connected to it, it's not going to be gray in color, and this red mark sign, cross sign, won't be on it. So let me connect to Classroom. So how do you connect? Just click it. Just click your database. Once you double click it, you can see database already started. It's going to start it, and you are going to what? It's going to allow you connect to it. So if you look at it, the color has changed. Hello? The color has changed. Beautiful. Now, how do we create database? PG admin 4 is the GUI. is a graphical user interface to interact with our database in Postgres. As you can see, you see graph. This is the dashboard. This is the properties. You can check the properties of your table. This is property for this. You can check the SQL statement that made this. This is the SQL statement that created this. Then this is the statistics for this. Then dependency, if it has any dependency. I think I have one that has a dependency. Okay, this. Let me double click this. So it's going to fetch dependency. Then you see dependency in there. I think DVD renter has dependency. I think it's still loading. Then dependence. No dependence information is. I think it's loading. I don't know why. Okay, so how do we create database in using pgadmin4? How do we create it? It's very simple. In fact, it's the simplest. So you come to your database. So if you have not used it before, you won't even see anything. You won't see the list of databases like this. You won't see it. So you just see database. Right click on your database, you see create database. When you right click on it, you see create database. Then this dialog box comes up. You can see it say name cannot be empty. Then you give it a name. What name should we give it? Let's give it that. That's data analysis. Okay, let me just give it that. That's data analysis training. Then I click save. So it's loading. This guy is still empty. No, we don't have any table in it. As you can see, I've not connected to it. You can see the guy is gray in color. So double clicking it, you see I've started it and I've connected to it. So how do I create table for me to be able to populate? For me to be able to populate my database. The DAT database, I will expand it. You go to schemas, under public, you go to tables. You can see your table. When you expand this table, there's nothing, we've not created any table. So it's empty. So you right click the table, you say create table. So it's waiting for the server. Then you give it a name. So let's call it student underscore info. Or let me make it like this. Student info. Now, I've just named the table, but I have to create the columns. So beside general, you see columns. Click columns. Then this is where you are going to be creating your columns. So you click the plus sign, add new row, or you use the shortcut Shift-Control-A. It's going to give you a new row. This is a new row. So I'm going to call it std underscore ID. That's student ID. So the data type, we have several of them. You can see all of them. But the one we are making use of for this ID is integer. So I don't want to tamper with not null or primary key first. So let's just keep creating it. Then we come back to that. Later. So the next one, name. Then the name we take character variant. So we can give it a length or precision of 50. Then the next one, we can call it, okay, let's call this one first name. Let's call this first name and call this last name. Then it's still going to take character variant. Let's give it 50 precision or length. Then what else? Let's give it age. Age will take integer. Okay. What else? What else? What else? Let's give it state. The states in which the guy comes from. It's going to take character variant. Can give it 20. Then let's give it nationality or country. Let's give it country. Character variant. Let's give the guy to 20. I don't think there's any name of a country that is more than 20 characters. So let's just leave it like this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 columns. Save. Now, look at it. Initially, this table is not telling us that it has anything initially. But now you can see tables 1. So if you have 20 tables inside this table, it's going to tell you the number of tables that you have that resides in this table. But now we only have just one table, and the table is what? Student info. Inside the student info, when you expand it, you see the columns. So the columns that we created now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 columns. So how do you interact with this guy? So what you just do is you right click on this guy and you click query tool. And we want to make use of our select statement. Select.
Boss, can you slow down small, please?
Okay.
Slow down, please. Quick question for you.
Okay.
For country, what data type did you use? Character variant?
Character variant, yes.
Okay. Did you give it any length?
Yes, I gave it, for country, I gave it 20. For state, I gave it 20.
Okay. All right, there is no length for age.
No. I only pick integer as the data type. So can I fire on?
Yes. And so when you clicked on table student info, how did you not get this new one you just did now?
Okay, you right click on student info. Then you click on query tool. Can you see it?
Yes, please.
So once you click on it, it's going to open this query editor.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Beautiful. Now if you look at our table, it's empty. This is just showing us the columns. It's empty. It's just showing us the columns. It's empty. So how do we populate this? So okay. Okay, let's just populate it. That takes us to using insert statements. We'll be using insert statement. Insert into, what is the name of our table? Student info. Student info. Insert into student infos. Then, student info. Then it's in 2 ways. We can specify our columns and we may not specify it. It all depends. For me, I don't like specifying it because it makes my query to be lengthy. But for a start, let's just how do I put it now? Let's specify it. First name, last name.
Quick one, your commands, are they case sensitive?
The command are not case sensitive, but the thing is this: you see that the color is different. It makes that means it is keyword.
Yes,
they are keywords. So why are they changing the case? If I type this guy as this, insert like this. It doesn't make any difference. You get, it doesn't make any difference. It will work. If I should change this guy back to lowercase, it will still work. It will still run. This play button is what you use to run it. Use this play button to run it. You can see it will still run. But me, I always like to change it. And how do I change it? I use Control key plus space bar. Control key plus space bar. It will change it to capital letter. Okay, so last name, age, state, and then country. Okay, after this, then you say values. Values, that is what you want to populate with. So the first one is ID 1. The first name, let's call this guy
why
Lagbaja.
State highlighted?
Why what?
State is highlighted.
Which one is highlighting?
It's colored. I mean, state is colored.
State is it's a keyword. It's a keyword, but it doesn't affect it. It's a keyword in SQL.
Yes, sir. To find out, right? Find out in article. No. Article, yeah.
I hope you are following.
Yes, sir. Quick one. Line 4 now. Is that 1 or I? It's quite small.
Line 4. Okay, sorry. It's 1.
Okay, that's like a serial number.
Yes, that's ID. Is the ID. Oh, I forgot to even put ID here. ID, yeah. ID, first name, last name, age.
We don't have ID on the table.
We put ID, yes, there is. There's an ID on the table.
But the table we created, we don't have ID there.
It is, there is. We call it ST_ID. Thank you. STD_ID. Yes, thank you. That's the ID. STD_ID. Now we've finished writing our statements.
Okay. Are you or you're leaving in that?
You said?
Sorry, what did we just? Sorry, sir.
Okay.
You said we finished writing our statement. Or what do you say?
Yes. We just finished writing our statement to insert data into the table. But I've not run it. Hello?
Yeah, I want to ask a question.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, because for example now, with this statement I'm seeing here, we put the first name, we put the ID, we put the first name, we put the
last name,
the age, the state, and the country.
Country, yes, sir.
Now, for somebody to populate a table, is that how we put in it one by one, or this is just like a command and it will pick it somewhere else to populate?
To populate, this is the statement you'll be using insert into the table.
Yes.
But if you want to populate, if you have larger file to run,
Yeah.
like you have,
Yes, I'm in class, please.
you know, if you want to if you have like 500 data to input,
Yes.
for you to be writing it one by one may be a little bit difficult.
Yes.
Probably you type it somewhere, then you bring it here. Let me see if I can still see mine. There's one I work with. world underscore X. Okay, yes, beautiful. This guy, you can see, sir. You can see. You can see how lengthy it is. So if I want to start typing this, I've created the, you can see how lengthy it is. This should be over 5,000 lines, over 5,000 lines. So it's either you have them in, it's not even your duty to do all this as a data analyst. It's not your duty. What we are doing is partly part of the work of a DBA, a database administrator. They are the one that do all of this. But there's no how you work with SQL that you have an idea of this. Yours is not, you are not even meant to create a database. You are not meant to create table, but you should be able to like interact with database, because there may be times that you be the one to pull your data yourself, to now connect it to probably your Power BI or something for you to analyze. You get, sir?
Yes, sir.
But we need to have an idea of how to interact with database. What this select mean, the select statement, what does it mean? Insert statement, what does it mean? Delete statement, what does it mean? Drop statement, what does it do? Update statement, alter, and all of that. So those are the things, those are the statements we'll be working with. In fact, I have some images. Maybe after this, I will bring it up, then use it to shed more light. Then I will send it to the group. I will send those images to the group. Then once we see it, often it's not that you don't need to cram. You don't need to cram all these statements, but the more you work with it, the more you remember.
Yes.
At first, you may cram it, but the more you work with it, the more you get familiar with it, the more it becomes part of you.
Okay.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. So let me just run this. Then you highlight it. Why am I highlighting this guy? Is because if you notice, I did not highlight this to run this. So if you have more than one query in your query editor, you highlight it. You highlight it, then you click this player button, or you click F5. F5 is execute. So boom, I run it. It's telling me query returned successfully. That means I've successfully run the query, no issues, no error. So let me select and then check. Now, can you see the ID, the first name, the last name, the age, the state, and the country? Any question?
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Sir, I don't know what to see, to be candid. I'm just joining the class because I was not able to access the room. I'm just joining the class. I don't know what has happened.
Mr. Owupele.
Owupele, yes.
Okay. What you do is you check the video. I will send the link this evening. And have you been able to install your Postgres?
I've not done that. I even sent a message in the group.
Okay. What is going to happen is this. I will send the link. I will send the link on how to install your Postgres. Then once you get that, you watch it, you install your Postgres. If you have any issue, you chat me up. Then send the link of this, then you list it. I'm still going to send, I have another video that talks about the introduction that we are doing now. I will still send the link to the group so that, in fact, I ought to have sent that, but because I was kind of very busy during the week. And and at the same time, I don't want to compound the loads that have given us, the assessment, the capstone project, and all of that. I know it's a little bit, it's kind of much. So I don't want to compound the loads. That's why I decided not to send it. So, but I'm going to send it this evening. Okay, sir.
So when
All
did
right,
you
thank you,
start
sir.
this class?
You said?
When did you start this class? Z8?
I started 8:15.
Hi.
8:15. I sent a message to the group.
I saw the
That we are
message.
starting,
We are just waiting for the link. Me and one other guy, we are just waiting.
No,
for the
it's
link.
been the same link. I commented before now, maybe around 7. I commented that this is the link. Probably you didn't take notes.
It's okay, no problem.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right. Any other pressing?
Yes, please.
Okay.
After running, executing, and all that, I can't see the way your data output has shows the information. Mine does not have that.
Does not have that.
Yes, I can't
What do
see.
you have? What do you have? Do we have the same environment?
Yes, we have the same environment.
Okay.
But I don't have other data output.
You don't have data output.
I have
what
data.
Do you have there?
I have data output. I have messages. I have notification.
Click on data output. Click the tab.
I've done that. Not
there are tabs.
Yeah, I've clicked on data output. It says no data output. Execute a query to get output.
Do this. Write this statement. Select all from student info. Write this. Can you see this statement? The statement
yes, I do.
highlighted. Write it and run it. Once you run it, you should bring this.
I should run that one too.
Yes, you run it. You highlight it, you run it. It should bring this for you. Okay. Now, as it come up, you should see it under your data output.
Syntax error at or near form.
Mine too is giving me error.
You know what? Look at the way I wrote mine. Look at the way I wrote mine.
You wrote from. I wrote from.
Okay. It's from. You are selecting from something. You are picking something from something. You get it? So that's right.
Okay.
So the Postgres has 2 different environments. It shows us 2 different environments to communicate with our database. And the second environment is PSQL or SQL shell. PSQL or SQL shell. Whatever we do here, we can do it there. So it looks like a command prompt environment. Everything we are doing inside this query tool, we can do the same thing there. So you just do PSQL. You type it on your search bar. You can see PSQL, or if you do not see PSQL, just type SQL shell. Then it will come up. So click on it. Then you see this dialog box. So when it comes up like this, you see server, localhost, just click enter. Database, Postgres, click enter. And it's telling you the port that your Postgres is making use of. That's 5432. Click enter. It's telling you that your username is Postgres. Click enter. So when you click enter, it's going to ask you for your password. Password for user Postgres. Okay, so you now type in the password you keyed in when you were installing your Postgres. So I'm going to type in mine. While you are typing, it's not going to display. It won't display. So just click enter. So you can see I'm connected to the Postgres now. Now, if you look at it, it gives me some information. It's telling me that the version I'm using is what? Version 13.4. Telling me the version I'm using is version 13.4. Now, the next thing to do is, how do you want to know the list of databases you have in your Postgres? /L. /L will give you the list of all the databases you have in your Postgres. Boom, you can see all of them. Classroom, that we just created, DB_CSV, like that. So I have quite a number of them. You can see I have 31 all together. Okay, now, how do you, if you want to pick any one of them, if you want to work with any one of them, how do you go about that? /C, then the name of the database. C means you want to connect to that database. /C, then the name of the database. Now you can see it's telling me you are now connected to database that as user Postgres. Now I'm inside that. I'm inside database that we created that we name as that. Okay. Now I want to insert more data into my database. So I will just say insert into what's the name of the stuff? Student info. Student info. I don't want to specify the columns. So I will just say values.
You have started doing magic again.
No, I'm not doing magic. I'm typing it. We have the ID, student ID, first name, last name, then the age, then the state, then the country. I'm sure you can see my screen. Okay, it's telling me error.
Can you expand your
Can you see it like this? It's telling me there's an error, so let me check. What's the error? Okay, student info. Okay, let me check. Student info does not exist. It's a lie. It does. I'm sure it's because of, and this is one of the reasons most people don't like using this guy. It's gone. So let me select everything from student info. You can see the new record I just inserted, Lawal Abu 23, Kogi, Nigeria. Did you get this?
No, you have to run this shell again.
I should run the shell again.
Yes.
Which part of the shell you do not understand?
So when you run your SQL shell, I think you were just pressing the enter key to you go to password.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, from that point when you put in the password, you threw me off.
Okay. When you successfully log in into your shell to connect or to see all the list of databases you have in your Postgres, you type /L, /L, not /, /L. Then you click enter. When you do that, it's going to show you the list of databases you have inside your Postgres. Okay, so to connect to a particular database, you use /C, then the name of the database, /C space the name of the database. Then you click enter. By then, it will tell you you are connected to so database. Then you can now interact with the database. You can talk to the database from there.
All right, so continue now. So from now that we are into that now.
Okay.
What next is you to pull up the information?
Yeah, I inserted one more data. Okay. You can query the database. You can do whatever. I inserted. I said insert into student info values. Then I key in the values. Then I click enter. Then it runs. Then I said select all from student info. Then it gave me the outputs. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is it working over there?
I'm typing.
Okay. Okay. Any other question, please?
So is this also, is shell also case sensitive?
Shell could be funny. Shell could be funny. Depending on the guy is very funny. So let me. Okay, I'm in here. I'm trying to see.
Are you doing anything on your screen? I'm not seeing anything.
You said?
Are you doing anything on your screen?
Am I doing anything?
Yes, I'm not seeing anything.
I'm not
Just showing
typing.
blue. Okay. Okay.
I'm not typing.
Okay.
These are the stuff that I have there. Can you see this? What color is this? Hello?
Blue, just blue, blue.
Yellow.
Are you sure it's blue?
It's yellow.
Yes, that's what I'm seeing.
You are seeing yellow. You are seeing blue or yellow.
Blue, blue. I can screenshot it and send it to you.
But you are not seeing yellow at all. I just highlighted it. Now it's blue now. So if I highlight it, I just highlight everything now and it is yellow.
Okay, so now I'm seeing what you are doing now.
So you can see yellow now, right?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello?
When you highlight it, it's more clearing than the blue we had here.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it better now? Are you sure you are good like this?
Yeah, it's more better than
like this, Abi? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's more better than the blue.
It's better like this than the blue. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Can we call it a day? Or does anybody have any question?
Okay. I have a question.
This shell here seems to bring a little bit confusion. It makes it more confusing than